In the heart of the 15th century, Florence wasn't just a city of stone and river. It was a living, breathing tapestry of ambition, a place where art bloomed under the Tuscan sun, and fortunes were woven from silk, spice, and cunning. This was a city of merchants, craftsmen, and endless intrigue, a stage where wealth became power, and power became legend. Amidst the vibrant chaos of the marketplace, a young man named Lorenzo di Rossi watched the world with restless eyes. His clothes were plain, but his dreams were as boundless as the Italian sky. In a city where your name was your currency, Lorenzo longed for one thing only: to prove that he, too, belonged among the chosen few who shaped Florence's destiny. With a heart full of hope and a purse holding his entire future, Lorenzo risked everything on a single, daring venture. He poured all his savings into a trade of the finest silks, a gamble that could either make him or break him forever. Weeks turned into anxious months. His sister, Isabella, would watch the road, her prayers a silent whisper against the wind. Then, one day, a silhouette appeared on the horizon. Against all odds, Lorenzo returned from Genoa, not with an empty cart, but with a ship laden with riches. For the very first time in his life, gold weighed down his purse, a tangible proof of his triumph. He rushed to Isabella, his eyes gleaming with a feverish light. "Do you see?" he whispered, his voice trembling with excitement. "Money opens doors, Isabella. Doors that have been closed to our family for generations." A soft smile touched her lips, but her eyes held the shadow of worry. "Remember, brother," she replied gently, "that when those doors open, you do not forget the way back home." Lorenzo, now flush with newfound wealth, sought not just more gold, but wisdom. He found his way to the quiet halls of the city library, seeking the counsel of Francesco Alberti, a legendary merchant who had retired from the world of trade to immerse himself in books and philosophy. The old man, with eyes that had seen fortunes rise and fall like the tide, saw in Lorenzo a reflection of his own ambitious youth. He listened patiently as Lorenzo spoke of his plans, his dreams of influence and power. Francesco leaned back in his chair, the scent of old parchment filling the air. "Remember this, boy," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Money does not change a man. It only amplifies what was already there, like a fine wine that simply reveals the true flavor of the grape it came from." Lorenzo laughed, a confident, booming sound that echoed in the silent library. "Then I must be a fine wine, master," he declared, convinced his heart was pure. Success is a magnet, and Lorenzo's rapidly growing fortune soon drew the attention of the most powerful player in Florence, Giovanni Medici, a man whose name was synonymous with banking, power, and ruthless efficiency. At a lavish banquet, surrounded by men in velvet and jewels, Giovanni singled out the young merchant. He leaned close, his voice as smooth and cool as the silk on Lorenzo's own back. "You have talent, Lorenzo," Giovanni purred, a predatory gleam in his eyes, a rare fire. "But talent is not enough. If you truly wish to stand among us, you must forget the small people, friends from the marketplace, family obligations. They are anchors, holding you back from the great sea of power." The words were a seductive poison, a tempting promise of the world Lorenzo craved, but in the back of his mind, Francesco's warning lingered like a distant bell. Money only amplifies what was already there. For now, Lorenzo was caught between two worlds, the one he came from and the one he desperately wanted to join. The allure of the Medici circle proved too strong to resist. As Lorenzo climbed higher and higher up the social ladder, he began to shed his old life, like a snake sheds its skin. He neglected those who had once mattered most. His childhood friend, Marco, a humble craftsman who had shared bread with him in leaner times, confronted him in the street. "You're not the same, Lorenzo," Marco said, his voice laced with disappointment. "Once, you wanted to change our world for the better. Now, it seems, the world has changed you." Lorenzo, clad in expensive fabrics, merely scoffed and walked away, the chasm between them growing with every step. The deepest cut, however, was to his own family. Isabella pleaded with him, tears streaming down her face, when their mother fell gravely ill. But Lorenzo, consumed by his dealings with the Medici, refused to leave Florence, claiming his business was too critical to abandon. He sent a purse of coins, but he did not send himself. He was becoming a stranger in his own home, a king in a castle of gold with no one to share it with. Then, the inevitable happened. Power built on shifting sands is destined to collapse. Giovanni Medici, ever the master of the game, saw an opportunity to eliminate a potential rival while covering his own fraudulent schemes, using Lorenzo's growing reputation and borrowing his name for a series of illicit transactions. Giovanni orchestrated a brilliant and devastating betrayal. When the scheme unraveled, all evidence pointed directly to the young, ambitious merchant. The blame fell on Lorenzo like a guillotine. In an instant, his world crumbled. His reputation, once his most prized possession, was now shattered. The very same councilman who had praised him now spat his name. Friends turned away, and whispers of traitor followed him through the very streets where he had once been celebrated. His fortune was frozen, his access to the powerful circles he had sacrificed so much for, gone. He was ruined. In chasing power, he whispered to the empty echoing rooms of his grand house, "I have sold my own name for nothing." Broken and alone, Lorenzo wandered the back streets of Florence, a ghost in the city he had once hoped to conquer. It was there, in a shadowed alley, smelling of damp stone and despair, that Francesco Alberti found him. The old scholar didn't offer pity or platitudes. Instead, he held out a small, polished silver mirror. "Look," Francesco commanded, his voice firm. Lorenzo stared at his reflection, seeing only a hollow-eyed, defeated man. "You do not see a ruined merchant," the old man continued softly. "I see a man who still has a choice. Money did not corrupt you, Lorenzo. It only made the voice in your heart louder. It amplified your ambition, your pride, and your fear. Now, you must decide what that voice will truly say those words." And the sight of his own weary face sparked a flicker of the old fire within him. He was not just a victim. He was a man who had made choices, and he could choose again. With a resolve forged in the fires of ruin, Lorenzo decided to fight back, but he would not use the Medici's weapons of deceit and manipulation. He would use the one thing Giovanni had underestimated: the truth. He requested an audience with the Council of Florence, the very body that had condemned him. Standing before them, no longer the arrogant upstart, but a humbled man seeking justice, Lorenzo laid bare Giovanni Medici's treachery. He presented evidence he had painstakingly gathered, connecting the dots, revealing the fraudulent scheme piece by piece. His voice, clear and steady, resonated with the weight of integrity. The city, which had been so quick to turn on him, now turned its collective anger against the true culprit. Giovanni's web of lies unraveled, and Lorenzo's honor, the asset he now valued above all else, was restored. Lorenzo di Rossi remained a wealthy man. The council, in clearing his name, returned his assets, but he was no longer the same man. He had learned that true gold was never in his coffers, but in his character. It lay in the forgiveness of his family, in the restored friendship with Marco, and in a simple word that weighed more than any coin: integrity. The final portrait of Lorenzo is not of him in a grand palace, but of him walking through the familiar marketplace, the heart of Florence. Isabella is by his side, her smile now free of worry. Marco greets him not with deference, but with the warm clap of an old friend. And the people, the small people Giovanni told him to forget, paused to shake his hand no longer for his wealth, but for the man he had chosen to become. He had found his way back home. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back to Renaissance Florence. If you enjoyed this story of ambition and redemption, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to our channel for more tales from history. We'd love to have you as part of our community. See you in the next video.